Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel. It's New Year's Eve. What better to do than spend your time watching me talk about old shotguns? And we've got an absolute belter to see the year out. So, I won't waste too much of your time because I'm sure you're going out to do partying and things like that. So we'll crack on with the review. We have got a personal favourite of mine. This is the Beretta 303 semi-auto. Now, what's been quite interesting is I've had a number of inquiries from people who actually have a passion for older classic semi-auto shotguns, which is quite unusual, particularly in this day and age when we live, we're surrounded by carbon fibre and Monte Carlo stocks and big ribs. To find people that still appreciate guns like this is put a tear to my eye, to be fair. Right, so let's crack on. Beretta 303, this gun cannot be ignored. It is so good. The amount of people I know that have owned one of these, never ever had a problem, absolutely bulletproof, will cycle anything. And I think it's a bit of a shame that this gun has kind of dropped off in terms of popularity because of all the new stuff that's available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rekindle everybody's shooting memories with this. So the Beretta 303 was launched, I'm going to stick my neck out, about 1986-ish. The previous model to this, the 302, and let's remember that all Beretta autos are gas operated. I think we have done a Beretta video previously, but it was a modern one in terms of semi-autos, all gas operated. And the 302 was an interesting gun because it was only really available in field spec. And what I mean by that is, it had a narrower rib, it was a bit lighter, it had a plastic butt plate. This for me was the first Beretta competition semi-auto. So alongside the fact that they did a 303 in a field version, they did a 20 bore, they also did an out and out sporter, and that is what we're going to look at today. If you go back to the mid 1980s, if you went shooting and people were shooting semi-autos, it would probably be dominated by the likes of Remington. Certainly were absolutely huge. You've got people carrying around those old Napier gun tips with an extra slip on the side to carry a spare barrel around for their Remy, depending on what they were shooting, whether they wanted a long barrel or a short barrel. They hadn't quite cottoned onto multi-chokes. And also alongside that, you might have seen the odd sort of Browning B80, something like that. But Beretta didn't really have a name in terms of competition. When I say competition, I mean clay shooting, semi-autos, and this is the gun that changed it. So this was available initially in 28-inch sporting with a 10mm parallel rib and 30-inch sporting. They later went on to do a super sport. You might remember the 682 super sport video we did. So it got a ported barrel, and it just put Beretta on the map in terms of people wanting to use their semi-autos for shooting clays. Now, the design itself is, fairly plain. It's got a black action with a bit of scroll engraving, but the mechanics of these things are absolutely faultless. I'll take the fore and off on, I'll show you how it works in relation to what we've looked at with previous semi-autos, but I just don't know anybody that's ever owned one that's gone wrong. I shot one for a number of years before I, silly mistake, swapped it for an AL391 Technis Gold. Should have kept the 303. They are just sensational. Right, we'll just take the fore end off. Okay, just slides off like that. Nice and simples. And then the barrel comes off. Now, as with all guns that we source here at Eastfield Gunroom, this is an exceptional example. This is a 1987 shotgun, which has barely fired a cartridge. So what you've got with this is you've got the barrel, where you've got your piston cup, like of the card film. I've done that one before, but I'm doing it again because it's nearly the end of the year. I'm allowed to. Okay. The gas from the cartridge is ported through here, which then pushes the piston back and cycles the action. It is so simple, but it just works so well. And I think since this gun, most other semi-auto manufacturers have tried to emulate what Beretta have done in terms of success, in terms of reliability, and they just haven't done it. If someone said to me, I want to buy a gas semi-auto, what would you buy? I would never personally recommend a Browning. I would never recommend a Remington. For me, it would always be, and has always been, Beretta. Inertia operated, Benelli, something we'll look at the channel shortly. It's a different ball game altogether because they just work differently, they feel differently. But in terms of gas, it is 100% Beretta. So there's your little piston. which sits inside your piston cup. I'm done with the car jokes now. And this one, 28-inch sporter, nominal board, so it's 18.4. It's got standard Beretta mobile chokes in it. It's got all the things that make Beretta great. You've got the cold hammer forged barrels, you've got the mobile chokes, you've got the reliability, the sort of fairly plain, inoffensive aesthetics. I can't tell you how good these are. If you want a Beretta semi-auto, these can be picked up for not a lot of money because, of course, you've got a lot of modern guns that have kind of pushed them to the side. You'll never beat a 303. These are brilliant. This one, like I said, 1987, very, very little used. And again, another top tip, if you're looking at buying a semi-auto, it's a good idea to have a look at the cartridge ejection port, because as with this gun, it's got a blued action. You will be able to see how much use it's had. Every time a spent cartridge is ejected, it catches there, and inevitably it will, over time, with continued use, affect the bluing of the action. 28-inch sporter. Now this one's got a nice bit of scroll engraving, bit of scroll either side. Very, very nicely done, to be fair. Gold trigger, again, shows it's done no work whatsoever because the gold washing is still intact on the trigger. And if you look underneath on the trigger guard, it's got the word Sporter. And we went back again to the 682 Super Sport video, and it got the sort of the yellow paint, which Beretta must have bought tons off Humbrol. But in the bottom of the action, it's just an exceptional example of, for me, the best Beretta semi-auto ever. Now, this particular gun, bit of a history again. This has got a magazine restriction stamp on it. So there was a tragedy back in 1987-8 here in the UK in Hungerford, and following on from that, if you had a shotgun that carried that was capable of holding more than 3 cartridges in total, i.e. 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine, it had to be restricted. So because of that, the likes of this gun and people that had 5, 7, 8 shot Remingtons, Franchis, whatever, we then had to have them restricted in order to keep them on a Section 2 shotgun certificate, and that was how the police handled it in terms of legislation. So exceptional example, and more importantly, all original. I looked at trying to find one of these, and there was that many that had got replacement forends on, been shortened in the stock, lengthened in the stock, the wrong foresight bead. Actually took a bit of finding to get an original exceptional example, but hey, what, I did it. So the stock, polyurethane lacquered finish stock. Again, in the 80s, it was kind of the norm. People were going to go out shooting clays in all weathers, and they wanted something. If you bought a Browning then, Browning 325, Browning Citori, or even a Browning Auto, Browning B80, which is an interesting one, which we're going to do a video on shortly, it would have had a lack of stock. And it's just so much easier in terms of maintenance because you can just wipe over with a cloth. You don't have to worry about the effects of the actual wood underneath the finish. We've seen these before. It's a standard 15mm chamfered Beretta sporting butt pad. And alongside, if you look at the modern Beretta autos, these are no different in terms of how you adjust them. So again, this design's been in use for years. The Beretta gas semi-auto, I think, goes back to the 1960s. I could be wrong, but it's certainly from memory what I saw in the museum when I was last over there. Like I said, this gun is a 1987 gun, but in essence, it's the same as what they do today in terms of the alterations. You take the stock off, you have a series of shims that will change the drop of the stock, it will change the cast of the stock, and it just makes it for a very, very user-friendly bit of kit. And let's not forget the key reason a lot of people buy semi-autos is because they want low recoil. These guns don't weigh a lot. I think this is just over 7 pounds. If you've got a lady starting shooting or a youngster, if you get the right kind of cartridge, i.e. 24 grams, they are very low recoil, and they are a good way of getting people into shooting without having to worry about being knocked about. They are great. Pigeon shooters, again, very popular. You've got 3 shots. You can put it up the corner in a hide, and you know that every time you pull the trigger, with it being Beretta, it will just go off. Simple as that. Now, the foreend's interesting because it's beaver tail-esque. I think I've used that term before. And up until this point, you probably didn't see that kind of forend on a semi-auto. They were slimmer, or argumentatively, if you look at a Remington, it was a great big forend. So it was kind of a halfway house because the previous model was completely round on the 302. This has got, it's nice and long, it's got that little groove in it, and with it being a sporting gun, it handles well, it moves well, the triggers are good. Interesting case in point, you know, triggers on semi-autos usually heavier than what you'd get on a conventional over and under, just from the point of view you don't want it to become fully auto and you want it to remain semi-auto. I wanted to find one in his original cardboard box. I've no doubt after this video I'll be inundated by people saying I've got one in the original box. If that's the case, please get in touch, because you know what we like here at Eastfield Gunroom. We like original, exceptional stuff. And that, although it's probably a shorter video than normal, is pretty much it. This gun ran from 1986 or 7 up until about 94, and then they launched the 304, which was a different style action, and then we went into the 390. And again, in essence, the 390, 391, very, very similar in terms of the dynamics and the mechanics of it. And then we have done a video on the A400, which brings us right bang up to date. But if you are looking for a second gun to shoot a few pigeons, or you want to try a semi-auto without breaking the bank, you will not go wrong with the Beretta 303. These have got a name of endearment cemented in time because they are that good. You ask anyone that shoots what they think of the Beretta 303, it is always, for me, a gun that comes out on top in terms of classic semi-autos. We are going to be looking at some other classic semi-autos on the channel, so if there's one you particularly want to see, please do get in touch and let us know what it is, and we will do our best to bring it to you. From everybody at Eastfield Gunroom, I want to wish you all a very happy new year. We look forward to seeing you in 2024 with more great content, more great reviews. Don't forget to comment below, like and subscribe to the channel. Feel free to get in touch, check out the website, and if you want to see more absolute crackers like this, not me, the gun, I've done it before, I know. We look forward to seeing you again in 2024. Happy New Year.